Hello, and welcome to my YouTube channel, Reading Little Blue Books Out Loud While Stoned. Today we're going to start a new Little Blue Book. Today we're going to start Little Blue Book number 18, and it is titled The Idle Thoughts of an Idle Fellow. And it's written by Jerome K. Jerome. And I've checked, there's no copyright date, but as always, these are usually written somewhere between the 19-teens and the 1930s. So we'll call it 1920s, just to make it in the middle. Alrighty, so here we go. The Idle Thoughts of an Idle Fellow. Chapter 1. On Being Idle. Now, this is a subject on which I flatter myself I am really au fait. The gentleman who, when I was young, bathed me in wisdom's font for 9 guineas a term, no extras, used to say he never knew a boy who could do less work in more time. And I remember my poor grandmother once incidentally observing, in the course of an instruction upon the use of the prayer book, that it was highly improbable that I should ever do much that I ought not to do, but that she felt convinced beyond a doubt that I should leave undone pretty well everything that I ought to do. I am afraid I have somewhat belied half the dear old lady's prophecy. Heaven help me, I have done a good many things that I ought not have to done, in spite of my laziness. But I have fully confirmed the accuracy of her judgment so far as neglecting much that I ought not to have neglected is concerned. Idling always has been my strong point. I take no credit to myself in the matter. It is a gift. Few possess it. There are plenty of lazy people and plenty of slow coaches, but a genuine idler is a rarity. He is not a man who slouches about with his hands in his pockets. On the contrary, his most startling characteristic is that he is always intensely busy. It is impossible to enjoy idling thoroughly unless one has plenty of work to do. There is no fun in doing nothing when you have nothing to do. Wasting time is merely an occupation then, and a most exhausting one. Idleness, like kisses, to be sweet must be stolen. Many years ago, when I was a young man, I was taken very ill. I never could see myself that much was the matter with me, except that I had a beastly cold. But I suppose it was something very serious, for the doctor said that I ought to have come to him a month before, and that if it, whatever it was, had gone on for another week, he would not have answered for the consequences. It is an extraordinary thing that I never knew a doctor called into any case, yet but what it transpired that another day's delay would have rendered cure hopeless. Our medical guide, philosopher and friend, is like the hero in the melodrama. He always comes upon the scene just, and only just, in the nick of time. It is Providence. That is what it is. Well, as I was saying, I was very ill and was ordered to Buxton for a month, with strict injunctions to do nothing whatever all the while that I was there. Rest is what you require, said the doctor. Perfect rest. It seemed a delightful prospect. This man evidently understands my complaint, said I, and I pictured to myself a glorious time. 4 weeks, dolce far niente, with a dash of illness in it. Not too much illness, but just illness enough. Just sufficient to give it the flavor of suffering and make it poetical. I should get up late, sip chocolate, and have my breakfast in slippers and a dressing gown. I should lie out in the garden in a hammock and read sentimental novels with a melancholy ending until the books should fall from my listless hand. And I should recline there, dreamily gazing into the deep blue of the firmament, watching the fleecy clouds floating like white-sailed ships across its depths, the listening to the joyous song of the birds and the low rustling of the trees. Or, on becoming too weak to go out of doors, I should sit propped up with pillows at the open window of the ground floor front, and look wasted and interesting, so that all the pretty girls would sigh as they passed by. And twice a day I should go down in a bath chair to the colonnade to drink the waters. Oh, those waters! I knew nothing about them then, and was rather taken with the idea. Drinking the waters sounded fashionable and Queen Annified, and I thought I should like them. But after the first 3 or 4 mornings, Sam Weller's description of them as having a taste of warm, flat irons conveys only a faint idea of their hideous nauseousness. If anything could make a sick man get well quickly, it would be the knowledge that he must drink a glassful of them every day until he was recovered. I drank them neat for 6 consecutive days, and they nearly killed me. But after then, I adopted the plan of taking a stiff glass of brandy and water immediately on top of them, and found much relief hereby. I have been informed since by various eminent medical gentlemen that the alcohol must have entirely counteracted the effects of the salivate properties contained in the water. I am glad I was lucky enough to hit upon the right thing. But drinking the waters was only a small portion of the torture I experienced during that memorable month, a month which was, without exception, the most miserable I have ever spent. During the best part of it, I religiously followed the doctor's mandate and did nothing whatsoever, except moon about the house and garden and go out for 2 hours a day in a bath chair. That did break the monotony to a certain extent. There is more excitement about bath chairing, especially if you are not used to the exhilarating exercise, than might appear to the casual observer. A sense of danger, such as a mere outsider might not understand, is ever present to the mind of the occupant. He feels convinced every minute that the whole concession is going over a conviction which becomes especially lively whenever a ditch or stretch of newly macadamized road comes in sight. Every vehicle that passes he expects is going to run into him, and he never finds himself ascending or descending a hill without immediately beginning to speculate upon his chances, supposing, as seems extremely probable, that the weak-kneed controller of his destiny should let go. But even this diversion failed to enliven after a while, and the ennui became perfectly unbearable. I felt my mind giving way under it. It is not a strong mind, and I thought it would be unwise to tax it too far. So, somewhere about the 20th morning, I got up early, had a good breakfast, and walked straight off to Hayfield, at the foot of the Kinder Scout, a pleasant, busy little town, reached through a lovely valley, and with 2 sweetly pretty women in it. At least they were sweetly pretty, then. One passed me on the bridge, and I think smiled, and the other was standing at an open door, making an unremunerative investment of kisses upon a red-faced baby. But it is years ago, and I dare say they have both grown stout and snappish since that time. Coming back, I saw an old man breaking stones, and it roused such strong longing in me to use my arms that I offered him a drink to let me take his place. He was a kindly old man, and he humored me. I went for those stones with the accumulated energy of 3 weeks and did more in half an hour than he had done all day. But it did not make him jealous. Got an itch. Having taken the plunge, I went further and further into dissipation, going out for a long walk every morning and listening to the band in the pavilion every evening. But the days still passed slowly, notwithstanding, and I was heartily glad when the last one came and I was being whirled away from gouty, consumptive Buxton to London, where it's stern work and life. I looked out of the carriage as we rushed through Hendon in the evening. The lurid glare overhanging the mighty city seemed to warm my heart. And when later on my cab rattled out of St. Pancras station, the old familiar road that came swelling up around me sounded the sweetest music I had heard for many a long day. I certainly did not enjoy that month's idling. I like idling when I ought not to be idling, not when it is the only thing I have to do. That is my pig-headed nature. The time when I like best to stand with my back to the fire, calculating how much I owe, is when my desk is heaped highest with letters that must be answered by the next post. When I like to dawdle longest over my dinner is when I have a heavy evening's work before me. And if, for some urgent reason, I ought to be up particularly early in the morning, it is then, more than at any other time, that I love to lie an extra half hour to bed. Ah, how delicious it is to turn over and go to sleep again, just for 5 minutes. Is there any human being, I wonder, besides the hero of a Sunday school tale for boys, who ever gets up willingly? There are some men to whom getting up at the proper time is an utter impossibility. If 8 o'clock happens to be the time that they should turn out, then they lie till 8:30. If circumstances change and 8:30 becomes early enough for them, then it is 9 before they can rise. They are like the statesman of whom it was said that he was always punctually half an hour late. They try all manner of schemes. They buy alarm clocks, artful contrivances that go off at the wrong time and alarm the wrong people. They tell Sarah Jane to knock at the door and call them, and Sarah Jane does knock at the door and does call them, and they grunt back, "Arr!" and they go comfortably to sleep again. I knew one man who would actually get out and have a good cold bath, and even that was of no use, for afterward he would jump into bed again to warm himself up. I think myself that I could keep out of bed all right if I once got out. It is the wrenching away of the head from the pillow that I find so hard, and no amount of overnight determination makes it easier. I say to myself, after having wasted the whole evening, I'll get up early tomorrow morning, and I am thoroughly resolved to do so. Then, in the morning, however, I feel less enthusiastic about the idea, and reflect that it would have been better, much better, if I had stopped up last night. And then there is the trouble of dressing, and the more one thinks about it, the more one wants to put it off. It is a strange thing, this bed, this mimic grave, where we stretch our tired limbs and sink away so quietly into the silence and rest. O bed, delicious bed, that heaven on earth to the weary head. As sang poor Hood, you are a kind old nurse to us fretful boys and girls, clever and foolish, naughty and good. You take us all in your motherly lap and hush our wayward crying. The strong man full of care, the sick man full of pain, the little maiden sobbing for her faithless lover. Like children we lay our aching heads on your white bosom, and you gently soothe us off to bye-bye. Our trouble is sore indeed, when you turn away and will not comfort us. How long the dawn seems coming when we cannot sleep. Oh, those hideous nights, when we toss and turn in fever and pain, when we lie, like living men among the dead, staring out into the dark hours among the dead, staring out into the dark hours that drift so slowly between us and the light. And oh, those still more hideous nights when... Come on, page. When we sit by another in pain, when the low fire startles us every now and then with the falling cinder, and the tick of the clock seems a hammer beating out the life that we are watching. But enough of beds and bedrooms. I have kept to them too long, even for an idle fellow. Let us come out and have a smoke. That wastes time just as well and does not look so bad. Tobacco has been a blessing to us idlers. What the civil service clerks before Sir Walter's time found to occupy their minds with, it is hard to imagine. I attribute the quarrelsome nature of the Middle Ages young men entirely to the want of the soothing weed. They had no work to do and could not smoke, and the consequences was they were forever fighting and rowing. If, by any extraordinary chance, there was no war going, then they got up a deadly family feud with the next door neighbor, and if, in spite of this, they still had a few spare moments on their hands, they occupied them with discussions as to whose sweetheart was the best looking. The arguments employed on both sires being battle axes, clubs, etc. Pardon me. Questions of taste were soon decided in those days. When a 12th century youth fell in love, he did not take 3 paces backward, gaze into her eyes, and tell her she was too beautiful to live. He said he would step curtside and see about it. Why, that cough snuck up on him. And if, when he wrought out, he met a man and broke his head, the other man's head, then that proved that the first fellow's, girl was a pretty girl. But if the other fellow broke his head, not his own, but the other fellow's, the other fellow to the second fellow, that is, because of course the other fellow would only be the other fellow to him, not the first fellow, if he broke his head, then his girl, not the other fellow's, but the fellow who was look here. If A broke B's head, then A's girl was a pretty girl. If B broke A's head, then A's girl wasn't a pretty girl, but B's girl was. That was their method of conducting art criticism. Nowadays, we light a pipe and let the girls fight it out among themselves. They do it well, very well. They are getting to do all our work. They are doctors and barristers and artists. They manage theaters and promote swindles and edit newspapers. I am looking forward to the time when we men shall have nothing to do but lie in bed till 12, read 2 novels a day, have nice little 5 o'clock teas all to ourselves, and tax our brains with nothing more trying than discussions upon the latest patterns in trousers, and arguments as to what Mr. Jones's coat was made of and whether it fitted him. It is a glorious prospect for idle fellows. That is the end of the first chapter. And time to hydrate. Rather interesting read so far, I think. Well, hydration. And let's do the Luca Unicorn Mini. Luca Unicorn Mini. It's one of my favorite concentrate tools. So if you're looking for an electric handheld concentrate vaporizer, I suggest the Luca Unicorn, or any of the Luca products. But if you like one with water filtration, Luca Seahorse, Luca Unicorn. This is the mini. They have a larger one. And lavender is our concentrate for the night. Very nice. Okay. One more hydration. Chapter 2. On being in love. You've been in love, of course. If not, you've got it to come. Love is like the measles. We all have to go through it. Also, like the measles, we take it only once. One never need to be afraid of catching it a second time. The man who has had it, can go into the most dangerous places and play the most foolhardy tricks with perfect safety. He can picnic in shady woods, ramble through leafy aisles, and linger on mossy seats to watch the sunset. He fears a quiet country house no more than he would his own club. He can join a family party to go down the Rhine. He can, to see the latest of a friend, venture into the very jaws of the marriage ceremony itself. He can keep his head through the whirl of a ravishing waltz, and rest afterward in a dark conservatory, catching nothing more lasting than a cold. He can brave the moonlight walk adown sweet-scented lanes on a twilight pool among the somber rushes. He can get over a stile without danger, scramble through a tangled hedge without being caught, come down a slippery path without falling. He can look into sunny eyes and not be dazzled. He listens to the siren voices, yet sails on with unveered helm. He clasps white hands in his, but no electric Lulu-like force holds him bound in their dainty pressure. No, he never sicken with love twice. Cupid spends no second arrow on the same heart. Love's handmaids are our lifelong friends. Respect and admiration and affection. Our doors may always be left open for, but their great celestial master, is his royal progress, pays but one visit and departs. We like, we cherish, we are very, very fond of, but we never love again. A man's heart is a firework that once in its time flashes heavenward, meteor-like. It blazes for a moment and lights with its glory the whole world beneath. Then the night of our sordid commonplace life closes in around it, and the burned-out case, falling back to earth, lies useless and uncared for, slowly smoldering into ashes. Once, breaking loose from our prison bonds, we dare, as mighty old Prometheus dared, to scale the Olympian mount and snatch from Phoebus' chariot the fire of the gods. Happy those who, hastening down again ere it dies out, can kindle their earthly altars at its flame. Love is too pure a light to burn long among the noisome gases that we breathe, but before it is choked out, we may use it as a torch to ignite the cozy fire of affection. And, after all, that warming glow is more suited to our cold little back parlor of a world than is the burning spirit love. Love should be the vestal fire of some mighty temple, some vast dim fane whose organ music is the rolling of the spheres. Affection will burn cheerfully when the white flame of love is flickered out. Affection is a fire that can be fed from day to day and be piled up ever higher as the wintry years draw nigh. Old men and women can sit by it with their thin hands clasped, and the little children can nestle down in front. The friend and neighbor has his welcome corner by its side, and even shaggy Fido and sleek Titty can toast their noses at the bars. Yes, it said Titty. Let us heap the coals of kindness upon that fire. Throw on your pleasant words, your gentle pressures of the hand with thoughtful and unselfish deeds. Fan it with good humor, patience, and forbearance. You can let the wind blow and the rain fall unheeded then, for your hearth will be warm and bright, and the faces round it will make sunshine in spite of the clouds without. I am afraid, dear Edwin and Angelina, you expect too much from love. You think there is enough of your little hearts to feed this fierce, devouring passion, for all your long lives. Young folk, don't rely too much upon that unsteady flicker. It will dwindle and dwindle as the months roll on, and there is no replenishing the fuel. You will watch it die out in anger and disappointment. To each it will seem that it is the other who is growing colder. Edwin sees with bitterness that Angelina no longer runs to the gate to meet him, all smiles and blushes, and when he has a cough now, she doesn't begin to cry and, putting her arms round his neck, say that she cannot live without him. The most she will probably do is to suggest a lozenge, and even that in a tone implying that it is the noise more than anything else she is anxious to get rid of. Poor little Angelina, too, sheds silent tears, for Edwin has given up carrying her old handkerchief in the inside pocket of his waistcoat. Both are astonished at the falling off in the other one, but neither sees their own change. If they did, they would not suffer as they do. They would look for the cause in the right quarter, in the littleness of poor human nature. Join hands over their common failing, and start building their house anew on a more earthly and enduring foundation. But we are so blind to our own shortcomings, so wide awake to those of others. Everything that happens to us is always the other person's fault. Angelina would have gone on loving Edwin forever and ever and ever, if only Edwin had not grown so strange and different. Edwin would have adored Angelina through eternity if Angelina had only remained the same as when he first adored her. It is a cheerless hour for you, both, when the lamp of love has gone out and the fire of affection is not yet lit, and you have to grope about in the cold, raw dawn of life to kindle it. God grant it catches light before the day is too far spent. Many sit shivering by the dead coals till night comes. But there, of what use is it to preach? Who that feels the rush of young love through his veins can think it will ever flow feeble and slow? To the boy of 20, it seems impossible that he will not love as wildly at 60 as he does then. He cannot call to mind any middle-aged or elderly gentleman of his acquaintance who is known to exhibit symptoms of frantic attachment. But that does not interfere in his belief in himself. His love will never fail, whoever else's may. Nobody ever loved as he loves, and so, of course, the rest of the world's experience can be no guide in his case. Alas, alas, ere 30, he has joined the ranks of the sneerers. It is not his fault. Our passions, both the good and the bad, cease with our blushes. We do not hate, nor grieve, nor joy, nor despair in our 30s like we did in our teens. Disappointment does not suggest suicide, and we quaff success without intoxication. We take all things in a minor key as we grow older. There are a few majestic passages in the later acts of life's opera. Ambition takes a less ambitious aim. Honor becomes more reasonable and conveniently adapts itself to circumstances. And love dies. Irreverence for the dreams of youth soon creeps like a killing frost upon our hearts. The tender shoots and the expanding flowers are nipped and withered, and of a vine that yearned to stretch its tendrils round the world, there is left but a sapless stump. My fair friends will deem this rank heresy. I know. So far from a man's not loving after he has passed boyhood, it is not till there is a good deal of gray in his hair that they think his prostinations at all worthy of attention. Young ladies take their notions of our sex from the novels written by their own and compared with the monstrosities that masquerade for men in the pages of that nightmare literature. Pythagoras, plucked bird and Frankenstein's demon were fair average specimens of humanity. In these so-called books, the chief lover or Greek god, as he is admiringly referred to, by the way, they do not say which Greek god, it is that the gentleman bears such a striking likeness to. It might be humpback Vulcan, or double-faced Janus, or even driveling Silenus, the god of abstruse mysteries. He resembles the whole family of them. However, in being a blackguard, and perhaps this is what is meant, to even the little manliness his classical Portrapus possessed, though he can lay no claim whatever, being a listless, effeminate noodle on the shady side of 40. But oh, the depths and strength of this elderly party's emotion for some bread and butter schoolgirl. Hide your heads, ye young Romeos and Leanders. This blasé old beau loves with an hysterical fervor that requires 4 adjectives to every noun to properly describe. It is well, dear ladies, for us old sinners that you study only books. Did you read Mankind? You would know that the lady's shy stammering tells a truer tale than our bold eloquence. A boy's love comes from a full heart. A man's is more often the result of a full stomach. Indeed, a man's sluggish current may not be called love, compared with the rushing fountain that wells up when a boy's heart is struck with the heavenly rod. If you would taste love, drink of the pure stream that youth pours out at your feet. Do not wait till it has become a muddy river before you stoop to catch its waves. Or is it that you like its bitter flavor, that the clear, limpid water is inspired to your palate, and that the pollution of its after course gives it a relish to your lips? Must we believe those who tell us that a hand foul with the filth of a shameful life is the only one a young girl cares to be caressed by? That is the teaching that is bawled out day by day from between those yellow covers. Do they ever pause to think, I wonder, those devils, ladies' helps, what mischief they are doing, crawling about God's garden and telling childish elves and silly Adams that sin is sweet, and that decency is ridiculous and vulgar? Oops. Well, these pages are hard to get separated. Okay. Is ridiculous and vulgar? How many an innocent girl do they not degrade into an evil-minded woman? Too many. To how many a weak lad do they not point out the dirty bypath as the shortest cut to a maiden's heart? Is it not as if they wrote of life as it really is? Speak truth, and right will take care of itself. But their pictures are coarse daubs painted from the sickly fancies of their own diseased imaginations. We want to think of women not as their own sex would show them, as L'Orealis luring us to destruction, but as good angels beckoning us upward. They have more power for food, for good or evil, than they dream of. It is just at the very age when a man's character is forming that he tumbles into love. And then the lass he loves has the making or marring of him. Unconsciously he molds himself to what she would have him, good or bad. I am sorry to have to be ungallant enough to say that I do not think they always use their influence for the best. Too often the female world is bounded hard and fast within the limits of the commonplace. Their idle hero is a prince of littleness, and to become that many a powerful mind, enchanted by love, is lost to life and use the name and fame. And yet, women, you could make us so much better if you only would. It rests with you, more than with all the preachers, to roll this world a little nearer heaven. Chivalry is not dead. It only sleeps for want of work to do. It is for you who must wake it to noble deeds. You must be worthy of knightly worship. You must be higher than ourselves. It is for Una, that the Red Cross knight did war. For no painted, miming court dame did the dragon have been slain. O ladies fair, be fair in mind and soul as well as face, so that brave knights may win glory in your service. O women, throw off your disguising cloaks of selfishness, effrontery, and affectation. Stand forth once more a queen in your royal robe of simple purity. 1,000 swords, now rustling in ignoble sloth, shall leap from their scabbards to do battle for your honor against wrong. 1,000 Sir Rolands shall lay lance in rest and fear. Avarice, pleasure, and ambition shall go down in the dust before your colors. What noble deeds were not ripe for in the days when we loved? What noble lives could we not have lived for her sake? Our love was a religion we could have died for. It was no mere human creature like ourselves that we adored. It was a queen that we paid homage to, a goddess that we worshipped. And how madly did we worship, and how sweet it was to worship. Ah, lad, cherish love's young dream while it lasts. You will know too soon how truly little Tom Moore sang when he said that there was nothing half so sweet in life. Even when it brings misery, it is a wild, romantic misery, all unlike the dull, worldly pain of after sorrows. When you have lost her, when the light is gone out from your life and the world stretches before you a long, dark horror, even then a half enchantment mingles with your despair. And who would not risk its terrors to gain its raptures? And I think we'll stop there. That is the end of part 1 of Little Blue Book number 18, titled The Idle Thoughts of an Idle Fellow, written by Jerome K. Jerome. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in part 2.